Let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. How long have you been waiting? Waiting for the right time, waiting for someone to believe in you, waiting for things to get better on their own. I know you have dreams. I know there's something inside you, something real, something burning that you've been putting off. But here's the truth nobody tells you. The right time. It doesn't exist. It never did. And the people who changed their lives, they didn't wait for it either. This is the story of one ordinary morning that changed everything. And it might just change something in you too. Chapter 1. The Alarm That Changed Nothing. RM was 26 years old, and he had been waiting his whole life. Not the dramatic kind of waiting, not sitting in a hospital corridor or standing at a train station. No, his waiting was quieter than that. It lived in the space between the life he had and the life he imagined. It showed up every morning at 6:47 a.m. when his alarm went off and he hit snooze. He always hit snooze. Not because he was lazy. At least, that's what he told himself. He hit snooze because getting up meant facing the day. And facing the day meant facing the gap between who he was and who he wanted to be. RM worked at a small printing shop in Lahore. He made decent money. He had a room, food, a phone. On paper, his life was fine. But fine is a word people use when they've given up on great. And somewhere deep inside, RM knew that. Every night before sleeping, he'd open his phone and scroll. He'd watch other people his age, sometimes younger, building things, launching businesses, traveling, learning, creating. And he'd think, one day I'll start too. But one day never has a date on it. That particular morning, a Tuesday in February, was different. Not because anything extraordinary happened in the world. The weather was the same. His room was the same. The printing shop was the same. But something shifted. Something very small, the way a single crack in a wall is small until the whole thing comes down. He hit snooze at 6:47. Then again at 6:57. Then at 7:07 he lay there staring at the ceiling, and a thought crossed his mind, the kind of thought you can't unthink. If I died today, what would my life have meant? He didn't know where it came from. Maybe from the dream he'd just woken from, he couldn't remember it. But the question stayed. It sat on his chest like a stone. What would his life have meant? He thought about it seriously, not with panic but with honesty, and the honest answer terrified him, because the honest answer was not much. Not yet. Chapter 2. The Weight of Unlived Dreams. RM got up that morning, really got up for the first time in years. He didn't scroll his phone. He didn't make tea and sit by the window doing nothing. He sat at his desk, a small wooden desk he used mostly as a shelf for things he never touched, and he opened a notebook. He'd bought the notebook 8 months ago with full intentions. It was supposed to be for his ideas, his plans, his one-day projects. The first page had 3 lines written on it. Things I want to do. 1. Start my own business. 2. Learn something new every week. 3. The third was blank. He'd run out of courage to even write dreams. He stared at that blank third line for a long time. Then he picked up his pen, the same pen that had been sitting on that desk for months, lid still on, and he wrote. Stop waiting. That was it, 2 words. But they were the most honest 2 words he'd written in years. Because RM realized something in that quiet February morning. His waiting wasn't patience. It wasn't wisdom. It wasn't strategy. His waiting was fear dressed in the costume of preparation. He wasn't waiting for the right time. He was hiding from the risk of failure. And every day he waited, he was choosing, actively choosing, a smaller life. We all do this, don't we? We wait until we lose the weight to start dating. We wait until we have money to start the business. We wait until we feel confident to speak up. We wait until we're ready, not understanding that readiness is not a condition that arrives before action. Readiness is the result of action. You don't get ready and then start. You start and then you get ready. RM had it backwards his whole life. And on that Tuesday morning, sitting at a desk covered in things he never used, he finally turned himself around. Chapter 3: The First Small Step, and Why It's the Only One That Matters. Now here is where most stories would have RM immediately do something grand. He'd quit his job, launch a business, travel somewhere, and by the end of the chapter, his life would look completely different. But real life doesn't work like that. And this is a true story, not of one specific person, but of every person who ever woke up and decided to change. What RM did that morning was embarrassingly small. He made his bed. That's it. He made his bed, which he had never done in years because, what's the point, I'm just going to sleep in it again tonight. He made it slowly, carefully, pulled the corners tight, fluffed the pillow. It took 4 minutes. Then he looked at it, and he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. Tiny, ridiculous 4-minute pride, but real. And in that moment, RM understood something that philosophers have tried to explain for centuries. Your environment shapes your identity. When his room was messy, his mind felt chaotic and permissionless, like a place where nothing important could happen. But that made bed, those smooth sheets, and that fluffed pillow told a different story. It said, someone who has standards lives here, someone who cares. He went to work that day. He printed flyers, cut paper, ran the machine like always, but something was different in the way he moved through the world. He was watching, noticing. A customer came in to print 500 brochures for a small restaurant. RM packed them up as usual, but this time he asked a question he'd never asked before. Is this a new restaurant? The man smiled. Yes, first week open. Good luck, RM said. Then, after a pause, if you need social media graphics printed too, we do that. The man raised an eyebrow. You do design too. I can learn, RM said. That sentence, that small, terrifying, honest sentence, I can learn, not yes, I'm an expert, not a lie, just an open door. The man left his number. RM stared at it on the counter for 10 minutes. Then he put it in his phone. Chapter 4: The Voices in Your Head Are Liars. That evening, RM sat in his room and the voices came. You know the voices. Everyone has them. They speak in your own tone, so you think they're you, but they're not. They're fear wearing your face. You can't do design. You don't even have software. That man won't call back anyway. You're a printing shop worker. Stay in your lane. What if you fail? What if you embarrass yourself? RM had listened to these voices for 26 years. They were the reason his notebook had only 3 lines. They were the reason the alarm got snoozed every morning. They were fluent, persuasive, and they always sounded reasonable. But that night, RM tried something new. He argued back. You can't do design. Right arrow, I can watch YouTube tutorials tonight. I have 3 hours. You don't have software. Right arrow, Canva is free. Photoshop has a trial. I have a phone. That man won't call back. Right arrow, maybe not, but one day someone will, and I need to be ready. You'll embarrass yourself. Right arrow, maybe. But I embarrass myself every morning I don't try. That's quieter, but it's worse. He opened YouTube. He typed, how to make restaurant social media graphic in Canva. The first tutorial was 14 minutes long. He watched it twice. Then he opened Canva on his phone, the free version, and he started. His first attempt was bad. The font was wrong. The colors clashed. The spacing was off. He knew it looked bad because he'd spent enough time around printed materials to have taste, even without the skill to match it yet. But he saved it. And then he made another one. At 12:47 a.m., he had made 7 versions of a fake restaurant graphic, each one better than the last. The 7th one was actually pretty good. He went asleep smiling, not because he'd succeeded, but because he'd started. And starting when you've been waiting for years feels like finally being able to breathe. Chapter 5: Why Consistency Beats Talent Every Time. The restaurant man called back. Not the next day, 4 days later. He'd shown the brochure to his wife, who asked where he'd got it printed, and she had remembered that RM mentioned design. "Can you make us an Instagram post? Just one to see." "Yes," RM said, without hesitation this time. He made 3 versions. He sent all 3. The man chose one, posted it, and it got more engagement than anything the restaurant had ever shared. RM got paid 500 rupees for a graphic that took him 40 minutes. 500 rupees is not a lot of money. But it was proof. Proof that someone in the real world would pay real money for something he made. That is a completely different kind of knowledge than anything you read in a book or watch in a video. It's the knowledge that lives in your hands and your gut and your confidence. RM didn't quit his job. He didn't announce anything. He didn't post about it on Facebook. He just kept going. He made one graphic every night, even when no one asked for it. He'd pick a random local business, a tailor, a pharmacy, a tea stall, and he'd design something for it, just to practice, just to build his eye. 30 days passed. He had a folder on his phone with 91 graphics. He started a WhatsApp status, not a big announcement, just a quiet portfolio, 3 samples, a simple message, graphic design work available, reasonable prices. Within a week, 2 people messaged him. Then 4. Then 8. Here is what nobody tells you about consistency. It doesn't feel like winning. Not at first. It feels like going to the gym for 3 weeks and still not seeing abs. It feels like watering a seed every day and the ground still looking like dirt. People around you don't notice. You don't even notice because you're inside the process, and the process is invisible from within. But consistency is compounding, like money in a bank, like water on a stone. It doesn't make a difference today or tomorrow. But 30 days in, 60 days in, 90 days in, suddenly there's a canyon where there used to be flat ground. RM kept going. Not because he felt inspired every day. Some evenings he came home exhausted. Some nights the creativity just wasn't there. Some days a client was difficult, or the work didn't come out right, or he felt like the whole thing was pointless. On those days he made his bed, he opened his notebook, he looked at those 2 words. Stop waiting. And he made one more graphic. Chapter 6. The people who will try to stop you and why they can't. 6 months after that February morning, RM's uncle came to visit. He was the kind of man who gave opinions the way other people give gifts, frequently, confidently, and without being asked. "Still working at the printing place?" he asked, sipping tea. "Yes," RM said, "but I've also started designing." The uncle's eyebrows went up, not impressed, skeptical. "Designing, and what does that pay?" RM told him honestly it was still supplementary income. Growing, but not yet a salary replacement. The uncle nodded slowly in that way that means I've already decided this is foolish. You know, a lot of young men think they're going to make money from phones and computers. It's not a real career. You should look for a government job. Stable. Pension. Real. RM had heard this before. From different mouths in different forms. Be practical. Be safe. Don't dream too big. Who do you think you are? He didn't argue. He didn't get upset. He just said, "I'll think about it." Then he went back to his room and made 3 more graphics. This is the thing about dreamers that the practical people never understand. You don't need their permission. You never did. The people who tell you to be realistic are not your enemies. They're just afraid. Afraid of the same things you're afraid of. And because they chose safety over risk, they need you to choose it too. Because your bravery makes their fear look like a choice. But here's what's true. Every business that exists today was once someone's unrealistic dream. Every career you admire was once someone's impractical idea. Every success story you've ever been inspired by was once a conversation in which someone said, "That won't work." The question is not whether people will doubt you. They will. The question is whether you let their doubt become your own. RM didn't. Chapter 7. The Morning That Changed Everything Again. 8 months after that first Tuesday, RM woke up at 6:47 a.m. The alarm went off. He didn't hit snooze. Not because discipline had become easy, it hadn't. Not because fear had gone away, it hadn't. But because the person lying in that bed was no longer the same person who used to choose the smaller life every morning. He got up, made his bed, opened his notebook. He was now making more from design work on weekends alone than from his weekday printing job. He had 12 regular clients, a small but loyal following on Instagram, not thousands, but real people who genuinely appreciated his work. And 3 weeks ago, he'd been approached by a startup who wanted him to design their entire brand identity. He'd said yes. Not confidently, not without fear, but with the knowledge earned through 8 months of daily action that he could figure it out. That failing wasn't the end. That starting was always the hardest part, and he had already proven he could start. He sat at his desk, which was no longer a shelf, but an actual workspace now, and he opened his notebook to the third item on his list, the one that had been blank. And he wrote, 3. Become someone who doesn't wait. Then he checked it off. Epilogue: what this story is really about. This story isn't really about graphic design. It's not about printing shops or WhatsApp statuses or Canva tutorials. It's about the alarm that goes off every morning. The one inside you, not on your phone. The quiet alarm that has been ringing for months, maybe years, telling you that there is something more you're supposed to be doing, something you keep putting off, something you're waiting on. That alarm is not going to get louder. It doesn't escalate. It just keeps ringing patiently until one day it stops, not because you answered it, but because you got too used to ignoring it. Don't let that happen. The day you stop waiting is not a dramatic day. There's no music, no montage, no moment where the clouds part and certainty rains down on you. It's just a Tuesday morning, a made bed, a pen on a page, one small action taken in the direction of the person you actually want to be. That's all it takes. Not everything, not perfection, not the right time. Just one step today. What is the one thing you've been waiting to start? Start it today, not tomorrow, not after the holiday, not when things settle down. Today. Because the person on the other side of that decision is waiting for you. And they've been waiting long enough.